forum open for any questions that you might have. And I request all members to ask those questions which are fresh, which are new, as you have been a part of these webinars since April on data validation. So if there are any new questions that might have come up, then you might want to post that in the chat box. We'll start with the weekly data submission timelines first. It's more like a refresher for all of us to remember the timelines because they are critical given by RBI. There are 4 critical dates that we need to remember, which are data cutoff dates. After that, we have certain turnaround times that we will discuss. So let's understand what are the cutoff dates first. These dates are also called reference dates in the RBI circular dated 4th December 2025. You can use the chat box to post your responses. Okay, I can see Pushpak is the first one to respond already. I request all the members who've joined the webinar to participate and post your responses in the chat box. So what are the key critical cutoff dates that we need to keep in mind? Oh, lines. We have more than 200 participants, requesting all the participants to post your responses in the chat box. '23rd and 30th. It could be 30th or 31st. So all those who've given these responses in the chat box, well done. These are the correct cutoff dates, and these are known as the reference dates in the RBI circular, like I mentioned earlier. Now we'll understand how does the week begin. So we start from 1st to the 9th. The data must be submitted by 13th, and we have 4 calendar days to submit the data. Calendar date includes your week offs, any public holidays, weekends. 10th to the 16th is the next week. Incremental account data to be reported, submitted by the 20th. 4 calendar days that provided once again. The third week begins from 17th to the 23rd. The data is supposed to be reported by 27th, and you have 4 calendar days to report this information as well. Once we finish the third week, then you have the entire month, which begins from the 1st to the 30th or the 31st, depending on the number of days in the month. So that will be known as a full data file. Full file will include all active accounts wherein relationship ended since last reporting reference date, accounts where there is a change from the last reporting reference date. So these are the details that will be included in the full file. And now we will look at what is incremental account reporting. What does it include? So incremental account includes accounts opened since the last reporting reference date, accounts where the relationship between the borrower and the CI has ended since the last reporting reference date, accounts where there's a change from the last reporting reference date because of any action or transaction initiated by the borrower. Example, change in outstanding balance or updates in demographic details. Even that is considered as incremental accounts. And lastly, accounts where interest and or installment of principal is overdue. Accounts with change only in days past due from the last reporting reference date shall also form a part of the reporting. So this is the definition of incremental account, and this is also available in the RBI circular dated December 4th, 2025. Let's understand what are the other aspects that this circular covers. So it talks about certain actions to be taken by credit information companies in case if any CI is not submitting the data in the prescribed timelines. I would like to understand from our members who've already been a part of these webinars, what do you think RBI has asked the CICs to follow in case any CI misses the timeline of a data submission? Let's see how many of you know that. We can post your responses in the chat box. Thanks, Pushpak. What about the others? In case any CI misses the timeline to submit the data, what is the CIC supposed to do in that case? Great. I can see some responses in the chat box. That is correct. So report it to RBI via the Daksh portal. So we'll understand that a little bit in detail. So CI missed data submission timeline to either TransUnion Civil or the other CICs. The CIC is expected to report this information to Department of Supervision at RBI each year at half-yearly intervals as on March 31st and September 30th. So these are the two dates where CIC is supposed to report the information to RBI. So I'd encourage all members to ensure that they submit the data within the given timelines. Now we'll understand the other aspects that are covered in the RBI circular around data validation. First is about sharing uniform data validation rules with the members. So we've created those rules. The revised UCRF guides have been emailed to all the members. In case anyone has not received it or would like to get the revised UCRF guides for consumer, commercial, MFI, all three, you can reach out to your data acquisition manager and ask for it. They will be happy to share that with you. It also talks about implementing online maintenance formats. So the uniform data correction formats have all been emailed already to all the members. Encryption standards were also emailed to all the members. And lastly, it talks about secure encryption for all data exchanges. So secure encryption is already in place. All our members use SFTP to share data files. And similarly, if there are any files that we need to share, we share that via SFTP with the respective member. I would encourage all members to continue to use only SFTP for data file exchanges. Do not use any other method of sharing files. It has to be shared only via SFTP. There's a specific path which has been shared with all the members where they're supposed to post their files. Please adhere to that and do not share data files through any other mode of communication. Let's understand some other information such as data parameters, circular uniformly parameterized rejection reasons. This has also been emailed to all the members. These are common rejection reasons that will be followed by all CICs. Second, we'll look at CIs to rectify the rejected data. So when a statistics are shared over email and details of the errors are shared on the member's SFTP path. That is where the member can go back and check what are the errors, fix those errors, and share that file back to the CIC. Now, it says that the file has to be submitted to the CIC before or along with the data submission at next reporting reference date. We'll understand what this means in the form of an example. Let's take an example of a month starting from 1st to the 30th. We take the first week data, which is 1st to the 9th. First to the 9th information should be submitted by the CI to the CIC in how many days? And also, I would like to know whether it's just days or is it calendar days? Let's see how many of you remember this. You can use chat to respond to this question. 1st to the 9th must be submitted by the CI in how many days? Requesting all the members to participate and engage in this webinar. Great, I can see quite a few responses. Some of you have written 4, some of you have written 4 calendar days. I can see the exact date, which is 13th. Some of you mentioned that. So good job there. So it's 4 calendar days. Like I mentioned, 4 calendar days will include weekends, will include any holidays. So member is very quick. 1st to the 9th data is submitted by the 10th. In certain number of days. Let's see how many members know the number of days allowed by RBI to ingest a file. How many number of days, and also mention whether it's calendar days or just days. You can use chat box to respond. So after you have submitted the file to us, we are supposed to ingest the file in how many days? Members are requested to use the chat to respond. Within how many days a CIC is expected to ingest the file? I can see some responses. Okay. Great. So some responses are accurate, while some of you continue to mention 4 days. So, well, it's not 4 days, but it's 3 calendar days. So 10th, we received the file. 11th, CIC has ingested the file, which is within 3 calendar days. Now the statement says, submit to CICs before or along with the data submission at the next reporting reference date. So 11th, we ingested the file. 12th, the data is rejected. Now this file is sent to the CI. CI will fix the errors, rectify it, and send it back to the CIC. It says before or along with the next reporting reference date. So first reporting reference date for us was 9th. Can anyone tell me what's the next reporting reference date after 9th? Most of you answered the question on the very first slide, the 4 critical dates for cutoff. So first one was 9th, which is the next one. You can use the chat to respond to this question. 9th is the first reporting reference date, which is the next one after 9th. Great, I can see some responses in the chat. Very good. 16th is the next reporting reference date. And the statement says submitted to CICs before or along. So before 16th would be anywhere between 12th and 16th. So let's take 13th for that matter. So I've taken 13th and data is resubmitted by the member. Or I can submit it along with the next reporting reference date. So the next reporting reference date is 16th. So along with the data submission of 16th, I can submit the rejected file, rectified data along with the data submission for 16th. I hope this example was clear and helped you understand how the data submission for rectified files must be done. Now we'll understand a little bit more about DQI. So every file that you submit, a DQI gets generated at file level. A file level DQI will be shared for consumer, commercial, MFI in 3 calendar days. A consolidated DQI for all the files submitted during that particular month, it will be shared by 10th of the next month. So I'll emphasize this again. File level DQI for consumer, commercial, and MFI will be shared in 3 calendar days after the file is processed. And a consolidated DQI, which is for all the files that we received in that particular month, will be shared by the 10th of the next month. Now we'll understand these timelines and we'll summarize this. We have this table in front of us. This is also available in the RBI circular. We will read this from left to right. The first column talks about credit information to be reported as on date. These are the reference date, as you all know, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and last day of the month. The second column says CIs to share data with CICs by what date? So for 9th, we share it by 13th, 16th will be shared by 20th, and for 23rd, the third week, it has to come back 27th. And for the full file, it will come back by 5th of the next month. The third column talks about how soon CICs are supposed to ingest the file and share a report with the CIs. If it is rejected, then the file has to be sent back to the CI with the errors that are there in that file, and then the CI is supposed to rectify that and share it back with the CIC. So we have a TAT of 3 calendar days. Hence, you will see that for the file that is received by 13th, the file ingestion has to happen maximum by 16th, and so on and so forth. You'll see the dates which will show a TAT of 3 days, 3 calendar days. The last column will tell us about when the file has to be rectified and sent back, or what's the maximum time. So for the first week, if the rectification was done and member is supposed to submit that back, then it has to come back by 20th, 27th, 5th of the next month, or 13th of the next month. So you have 4 calendar days and 5 days. This table is available in the RBI circular. Now we will look at how DQI is calculated. For understanding DQI, we'll take a look at the reference dates, 9, 16th, 23rd, and the last day of the month. The second column talks about number of records in the file. So you have 100 records, and then you'll see a DQI score generated for that file, which is 95. Now we'll take the second example, 120 records with 98 score, 150 records with 100 score, 500 records with 98 as the DQI score. This is a file level DQI score generated. For calculating the consolidated DQI, you need a different approach. So you see this calculation here, which talks about number of records multiplied by the file level DQI score. Then you add up each of the files in a similar way, as you can see it on the screen here. And the denominator will be the number of records, which is 100, 120, 150, and 500. And then you have the consolidated DQI score for all the files received in that particular month. So this is how it is calculated. With that, we've completed the data submission timelines. We've understood what is the TAT for submitting the data, which is 4 calendar days. We know the reference dates, 9, 16th, 23rd, and 30th or 31st. We know the data ingestion TAT, which is 3 calendar days. We know that the DQI at file level will be shared in 3 calendar days, and a consolidated DQI will be shared by the 10th of the next month. So these are the critical timelines that we need to keep in mind. In the Consumer Bureau. We'll start with the file naming convention first. In the current version, this is how the file naming convention looks like. Starts with reporting member ID, date of file creation in date, month, and year format, file creation time in hours, minutes, and seconds. Now, this has been revised in version 3.74. You have a proposed input file name. This is what you can choose. So starts with the bureau name, consumer. Then you have the legend, which indicates whether it's a daily file, weekly file. If it's weekly, then is it week 1, week 2, week 3? Or if it's a month end file, then ME. Date reported and certified, date, month, and the complete year. Reporting member code issued by any CIC, and any internal reference name or number which you would like to keep to identify the file. Now, this is one naming convention. There's another one which is available in the UCRF guide, revised UCRF guide. You can either follow that or you can follow this approach. The legends very clearly indicate why would you use a DL, why would you use a W1. So a DL simply means daily incremental submission. W1 means first week, week 2, W2, W3 is third week, ME is month end, DC is any data correction or dispute which you are in discussion with the CIC, then you will use DC while submitting that flag. AH, any other ad hoc submission, for any reason, if you've been submitting data as ad hoc, then you put AH, and then you have RR, where correction has been done to the data file, which is rectified, and now you're submitting that after data was rejected, then you'll put RR. So these are the legends that you are expected to use, and the onus to ensure that the legend is accurate remains on the member. Now we'll understand the changes that have gone in header segment. Position 1, segment tag. Earlier, you used to populate only TODF in this field. With the revised version, along with TODF, you can also populate CONS, which indicates Consumer Bureau. That's the first change. Second change is position 37, reporting member processor short name. This field is mandatory currently in the existing format. With the revised version, it is optional, which means you do not have to populate any value in this particular field, reporting member or processor short name. And file will not be rejected if the field is left blank. Hence, fill it with spaces. The next change is for position 53, cycle identification. Current version allows you to enter information in free form. Going forward, effective 1st July 2026, the reporting cycle has been coded. It's code-based, and you can see the codes over here, which we just discussed a few seconds ago. DL, week 1, week 2, week 3, ME, and so on and so forth. Hence, ensure that you select the accurate code over here. So free text is no longer allowed, and predefined codes are available, which has to be selected. If any other code other than these codes are selected, then that can create a problem for the file. So you have to ensure that you please select the right codes. Now we're looking at position 63, which is reporting password. Currently, it is mandatory. With the revised UCRF, it is future use, which means you need not pass any values anymore in this particular field. So this field is no longer required. Any values that you provide will not be used or processed. So this field, if you're not using it, then all unused bytes must be filled with spaces. If you pass any value in this field, it will be ignored by CICs, and avoid passing non-printable characters, which can lead to file being rejected. So it's better to fill this with spaces. The next one is position 93, field authentication method. Currently, it is mandatory. In the revised UCRF, it is going to be future use. So again, the same rules apply. Like I said earlier, the field is no longer required. Any value provided in this particular field will not be used or processed. Just make sure you fill it with spaces and do not pass any non-printable characters, which can cause the file being rejected. Now we look at the name segment. So we've looked at file naming convention. We looked at the header segment. Now we're looking at the name segment. So in the name segment, we have the field tag 125, field name fields. In current version, we need at least one word in the name. In the revised version, we have certain changes being done. So let's understand that. What are those changes? So we need at least one or more than one token. So a token refers to a text populated in the name field. In simple terms, the field cannot be blank or cannot contain any symbols or numbers. It has to be a proper name text, meaning one token is required. If not populated, then that is not acceptable. Second criteria is at least 2 alphabets are required. Equal to or greater than 2 alphabets must be available between A to Z, and initial only is not allowed. We'll take a look at the example, what it means. So if you notice this table over here on the right hand side, it says AN, accepted because the criteria of 2 alphabets is met. Then we have RAM, it's 1 token, proper name, so it's accepted. You'll see the examples that are rejected, such as A, it's rejected because only 1 alphabet. So the criteria of minimum 2 alphabets is not met. Here you will see special characters. Then you have alphanumeric. So 1A is rejected because there's just you have to remember two important things over here. If it is a single name, then any ID or mobile number is required. So either ID or mobile number. And specifically mobile number, it cannot be landline number for single name. That's the rule. For 2 or more token names, if you've not given an ID or telephone, then the record gets rejected. And here, if you're providing telephone, you can provide either a mobile or landline, which is fine, or one ID. So I'll repeat it once again. For single name, ID is required or mobile number is required, specifically mobile number. If there are 2 or more token names, in that case, either ID or telephone number is required, and telephone can be mobile or landline. And the list of IDs are mentioned over here: PAN, passport, voter's ID, driving license, ration card, etc. Name field 1 is no longer a mandatory field. Name validation should be done through concatenation of name 1 to 5. So in the existing version of UCRF, the name field 1 is mandatory, which means once you start filling the name, it has to start from name field 1, which has been removed. You no longer have to start filling the name from name field 1. You can start from name field 2 also. It's absolutely fine. Now let's understand this in the form of examples. So you have name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4, and name 5. First example, you'll notice name 1 is blank. Name 2, you have Ramesh, and remaining name 3, name 4, and name 5 is blank. Outcome, if you enter name like this, outcome is accepted because it has one valid token, which is Ramesh in name 2. So when we concatenate from name 1 to name 5 and extract the names, we got one token from name 2, which is Ramesh. Hence, it is accepted. Let's take another example. Row number 3, you'll notice name 1 is blank. Name 2 is Kumar. Name 3, there is relationship prefix, which is son of. Name 4 is Mahesh. Name 5 is blank. It is accepted because you have valid tokens. So Kumar is a valid token. Mahesh is a valid token. You have more than one valid token. Hence, it is accepted. Now we'll take a look at the rejected examples. So look at the second last one. Name 1 is blank. Name 2, you have single alphabet, which is A, and remaining all the fields are blank. So when you concatenate and extract name from all the fields, you get only A. And the minimum criteria is 2 alphabets, 2 or more. So here it is just 1 alphabet, hence it is rejected. And if you notice the last one, all fields are blank. Under name 2, they have put special characters, @ and hash. Numbers and special characters are not accepted, hence it is rejected. So it's an invalid token name. Now we talk about salutations appearing after the name will be treated as a part of the name. So if you're passing values which says Tony and then Mr., it will be a part of the name. If salutation appears before the name, single name validation rules will apply, requiring one valid ID. So we'll take an example. The title The heading says consumer name reported. The name reported is Rakesh, Mr. The interpretation logic is two token names, so Rakesh plus Mr. Two tokens, hence the name is accepted. In this situation, the salutation appears after the name and it counts as a part of the name. We'll take another example over here. Mr. Rakesh. So Mr. is before Rakesh. So salutation gets ignored. Rakesh gets treated as a single name. So we have one valid token. It is accepted. Single name validation is passed. And remember, for single name, you need one ID or mobile number specifically. So either one ID or mobile number. We look at the rejected example now. Mr. A, second last row, salutation gets ignored. A is left. A is rejected because it's just one alphabet. And for name, we need at least two or more alphabets. So that's the minimum criteria. I hope these examples helped you to understand how exactly the name should be passed to ensure accurate information is shared with CICs. Now we'll look at numeric characters being used in the name tags position 1 to 5. We're still talking about borrower's name, so we'll understand numeric characters. So in version 3.73, there were scenarios which could still pass, such as Ravi 1, Amit 99, S 123. Going forward, it's not going to be allowed. You cannot have numeric values along with the names. So that's the change in the revised version. And you have some examples over here. For example, AN is accepted. It has two alphabets. RAM is accepted. It is one token. Whereas on the right hand side, you'll notice the rejected values, only letter A. So it's one alphabet, so it's not accepted. Then you have 1A numeric value, alphanumeric. Then you have special characters. Then you have Ravi 1, Kumar 123. So all these will not be accepted. So you need to ensure that the rules around borrower's name are followed so that your data gets accepted. This slide will tell you about the allowed and disallowed special characters in the consumer name field 1 to 5. This is also available in the revised UCRF guide on page 52. So you can refer to that as well, but I've just put it up over here for your reference. Now we'll talk about relationship prefixes in the name field. So position 1 to 5, relationship prefixes. In the revised version, there are only 4 relationship prefixes that will be used going forward effective 1st July 2026. Currently, what happens is if the details passed in relationship prefixes, say wife of full form is written, it was still passed and we used to have the data available with us. Son of was written in full form instead of S/O. To avoid all of this information passing into the system, we ensured that only 4 relationship prefixes are allowed going forward. And let's understand that a little bit in detail. So the 4 relationship prefixes are son of, daughter of, wife of, husband. 4 formats will be rejected. And relationship prefixes are not case sensitive. And you can also use / or \. Both are permitted. Name token must be reported prior to relationship identifier. So, for example, Tony, son of, and then the father's name, for example, or mother's name, for example. That is how it's supposed to be written. We'll show you some examples over here, accepted values. So if you look at this example, S/O. That's the way you write it. So son of, if you see the rejected value, S.O. So dot is not allowed. It has to be / or \. Either of them is accepted. Take a look at the next table. Accepted values, rejected values. Ramesh, son of Mahesh. This is how you're supposed to be written. So name, then the relationship, and then is it father's name, mother's name, etc. Rejected values only son of Ramesh. Now we don't know the borrower's name over here, so it's not mentioned. Hence it is rejected. Another example over here, Sunil, son of Ramesh. It's accepted. Here it's only son of. The no name before or after. So it's not accepted. So these are the corrections that we've done to the relationship prefixes. Remember, 4 relationship prefixes are allowed: son of, daughter of, wife of, and husband of. And you need to only use these 4. Now we'll look at the usage of slash, forward slash, and backslash. And should not be used anywhere else in any other field across the Consumer Bureau data submission file. So currently, there is no clear system level rule governing where slashes could or could not appear. Hence, inconsistent formats often pass validation. For example, if you notice here, s.o, s backslash o, s space slash space o. So this all were inconsistent formats. So going forward in the revised UCRF, slash characters can be forward slash or backslash, both are permitted. However, only with valid relationship strings. And the relationship strings that we just discussed is son of, daughter of, wife of, and husband of. So only when used as a part of standardized relationship prefixes, you're allowed to use forward slash or backslash. In all of the situations, the appearance will lead to a rejection of the record. You have an example over here. So son of Ramesh. So if you notice here, slash is used, forward slash, daughter of Anita, so forward slash. Rejected values examples will tell you the first one. There is a space between son, then the backslash, then again space, and then off. Similarly, again, space in son of Ramesh. Then you have Ravi space forward slash space Kumar. So these are rejected values. These are accepted values. Now we'll move on to identification segment. Let's understand the changes in ID segment. Segment level rules. So single name acceptance. Current version had limited IDs. With revised version, you have any valid ID. So let's understand what's the change. For accounts opened on or after June 1st, 2007, the ID segment is mandatory if only if a valid telephone segment is not provided. So if you've not given the telephone number, then ID segment is mandatory. So what does this mean? Let's understand that. If valid telephone is provided, then you need not give ID. If valid telephone is not provided, then ID has to be given. If you do not provide telephone or ID, then the record will get rejected. Valid ID types: PAN, passport number, voter's ID, driver's license, ration card. You have all of these as the valid ID types. Field level, field tag 10, ID type Narega. Current version is Narega card. It's restructured now to GRAMG. That's the name change that has happened. At field level, field tag 2, ID type passport. Current version, first character is letter and remaining is numeric. This is allowed. In the revised version, we have accommodated first or second character can be letter and remaining is numeric. Now, this is done to cover those passports which have first and second character as letters. In the current version, there are quite a few passports which had first and second character as letter. We could not accommodate that, but now with the revised version, that's been taken care of. Next one is field tag 9. ID type is CKYC. In the current version, we have 14 digits numeric. It is acceptable. With the revised version, we accept 14 digits all numeric, and we have also started or revised, and we will accept 15 digit where first position is alphanumeric and remaining is numeric. Now, this change ensures better alignment with updated CKYC number structures. Now we look at the telephone segment. In the telephone segment, field tag 1, telephone number. It's mandatory if no IDs are provided. and specific IDs were mentioned in the current version. With the revised version, it is mandatory if no valid ID is provided. So let's understand what that means. So under the current version, the rule specifies that the telephone number was mandatory only if certain identification types were not provided. The focus was on presence of specific IDs and not necessarily on their validity. So what's the implication? A record could pass validation even if an ID was provided, but invalid or incorrectly formatted. With the version 3.74, this rule has been strengthened. So let's understand what is the change. If telephone, as we know that the telephone number is mandatory, and if no valid ID segment is provided, multiple telephones can be reported with any telephone type. For example, if you select landline, you can provide two landline or three landline numbers. It's fine. The current validation with telephone type 00 is to be removed. Now, what does this change means? The system now checks validity, not just the present. So the format will be checked. Any invalid ID is treated as not provided. If all IDs are invalid or absent, a valid telephone number becomes mandatory. So at least one reliable consumer identifier must be available. And validation is now more precise and enforceable. So members must either ensure either a valid ID, which can be a PAN, passport, voters, driver's license, ration card, etc. They provide this or provide a valid telephone number. Look at the headers first. So scenario, valid ID provided, telephone number provided, the outcome, and the last column talks about the reason. Why are we accepting it and why are we rejecting it? It's mentioned in the last column, reason. We'll take a look at case one. Valid ID accepted because we have one valid ID. Valid ID satisfies minimum criteria. So hence it is accepted. Case two is valid ID provided? No. Valid telephone number provided? Yes. Outcome is accepted. PT mandatory and provided. So it's accepted because we have one out of the two. Case three, if you notice, valid ID is also provided and telephone number both are provided. Hence it is accepted because both ID and telephone number are present. Now we look at the rejected examples to understand a little bit more about ID and telephone number. So case 5, invalid ID and no telephone number. Both are not given, so rejected. And take a look at the last case, case number 6. No valid ID, no valid telephone number, rejected. So minimum identification is not met. So I hope these examples gave you clarity on telephone number and ID that we need. At least one reliable ID identifier is required. It can be a telephone or it can be an ID. Now we'll understand email contact segment. Field tag 1, ID type is email ID. The current rules are governed by inline limited rules allowing inconsistent or loosely structured email formats to pass. There's a change that has been made. The rules are available in Appendix E on page number 59 of the Consumer UCRF guide, email ID. So in the revised version, the email ID validation has been significantly strengthened and is now governed by a detailed set of quality checks defined in Appendix E. 10 email IDs are allowed, which must have only one @ symbol and at least one dot. Email addresses are not case sensitive, so it can be lowercase or uppercase, which is absolutely fine. Let's understand this in the form of an example. So if you notice here, you have 9 examples over here. And on the last column, you'll see the reason for rejection. So what are the things that we need to keep in mind when it comes to email ID? So the first reason for rejection says less than 2 alphanumeric characters present before @. So let's take at the examples. Accepted email ID, you'll notice ku12@gmail.com. It is accepted because before @, there are more than 2 alphanumeric characters. And rejected email ID, you will notice before at the rate, there is only just one alphabet. Let's take a look at the second reason for rejection. Less than two alphanumeric characters present after at the rate. So let's take a look at the examples. In the second case, accepted email ID after at the rate, we have gmail.com, hence it is accepted. In rejected email ID, you will notice after at the rate, it is only g.com. So it is not accepted. It is rejected. Let's take some other example. Serial number 5, the rejection reason says ends with at the rate symbol or dot symbol. So if you notice the accepted email ID, there is a proper email ID, hey hi at the rate yahoo.com. It does not end with at the rate, it does not end with a dot. However, in the rejected email IDs column, you will notice there's an at the rate after .com and there is a dot after com. So this is not acceptable format of email ID, hence it is rejected. Let's take another example. Serial number 7, space present in middle of the email address. If you notice the accepted email ID, there is no space, but here in the rejected email ID, you will notice there's a space. I have highlighted it in yellow color, user01 space at the rate gmail.com. Hence, it is not accepted and a rejected email ID. I hope these examples also help you understand how email ID should be passed along with the data submission file to make sure that there are no rejections. Now we'll move on to the address segment and we'll understand the changes that have happened in the address segment. The address tag is 01 to 05, field address lines. Current version will allow you to type the address in a free format. In version 3.74, which is the revised version, it must match the KYC. And how are we going to remove the address from field tag 1 to field tag 5? When you are entering the address, we will extract the address from each field and the length of that must be greater than or equal to at least 3 characters. So let's understand the current version. In the current version 3.73, address fields were fully free format. Short, a placeholder, or non-informative values could pass. No minimum meaningful length was enforced. With the revised version, there are new validation checks. So KYC alignment is required. Address must be consistent with the information maintained in members' KYC records. The onus of updating the address as per KYC remains with the member. We do not do any validation at our end to check whether the address is as per KYC or not. It is the onus is completely on the member to provide the address as per KYC. Concatenation based length check. So you have address line 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where you update, you split the address and mention that in each of these fields. So after you've entered that, we extract the information from each of these fields and put it together to make it a meaningful address. So the total length of the address after we extract it from all the fields must be equal to or greater than 3 characters. That's the rule. No placeholders or junk values. So non-meaningful values are rejected if technically non-blank, because you've just filled the fields does not mean it is a proper address. So you cannot put any junk values or placeholders like null or NA, etc. Avoid putting all of these in the fields. So address line 1 is non-mandatory. Current version, address line 1 is mandatory. You need to start from address line 1. But in the revised version, you can start from address line 2 also. It's absolutely fine. Then we have Army Post Office address. If this field is a required field for that particular borrower, then the state code must be provided. And in case if the state code is not known, then you need to ensure you select 99 for Army Post orders. Let's take an example of addresses as well, how an address should be entered. Let's take a look at the header first. So address line 1 to 5 combined. Then we have the second column, which says combined length should be equal to or greater than 3. Third column says outcome, and the last column says reason. Address line 1 to 5 combined. If you notice, the address that we've concatenated and extracted from field 1 to 5 is 12 MG Road, Mumbai. This is a complete address. Combined length is greater than or equal to 3 characters. Outcome is accepted. Reason, meaningful KYC aligned address. KYC aligned will, like I said, the onus remains on the member. Second row, you will notice the address lines 1 to 5. We have extracted the address and we got flat 3B Pune. Combined length is greater than or equal to 3 characters. So it's a yes. Outcome is accepted. It's an identifiable, meaningful address. We look at those which are rejected now. For example, here after concatenation, we just got NA. These are placeholders or junk values. So combined length, we'll accept, we'll put no, it is rejected, placeholder and non-KYC compliant. Then we'll take another example where XX is mentioned. So it's not acceptable. Only a hyphen is mentioned, which is a placeholder, or all the lines from 1 to 5 fields are blank. No address has been provided. So that is also rejected. I hope these examples help you understand how to update the address accurately. Related to the address, we will now talk about state code field tag 6. Current list that we have has been updated and the revised list will also show Ladakh being added and foreign state code being added. We'll talk a little bit more about this. And this is available in Appendix B, a table which will show you the state and the state codes in the revised UCRF guide. So state codes were in the current version, we have a limited state codes. With the revised version, we've added state codes to it. So in the revised version, the state code catalog has been expanded and updated in Appendix B. What are the additions being done? So Ladakh state code 37 has been added and foreign state code 77 has been added. This has been added to capture addresses which are outside India. Now, this ensures alignment with current administrative geography, proper classification of overseas addresses, and improved data consistency and validation. Now, please note that Army Post Office address, if this field is required, then state code must be provided. If you're not sure of the state code, in that case, select 99. For foreign address, the state code is 77, specifically has to be 77. PIN code check is relaxed for foreign address if the state code is reported as 77. Foreign address will be allowed only for the following account types, which is credit card, loan on card, education loan, and home loan. And the last point, PIN code, that is first two prefix minimum change from 39 to 36 for Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and state code changed from 25 for Dadra, Nagar Haveli, and Daman and Diu. So these are the changes that have been done. They are already put in the state code PIN code table in Appendix B of the revised UCRF. All of this is applicable from July 1st, 2026. Now we look at the account segment, TL segment. Field tag 2, current on new member short name. Current version says it is mandatory. With the revised version, it is optional. Under UCRF current version, every data file had to contain a value in this particular position. Going forward, as this field is become optional, members are no longer required to populate this field with any value. So field will not be rejected if this field is left blank. Hence, please ensure it is filled with spaces. The next change is field tag 3, field current on new account number. The minimum length is prescribed for account types. Now with version 3.74, the minimum length prescribed is only for few account types and relaxed for the rest. Take an example over here in version 3.73, which is the current version. You'll notice account type 2, 5, 10, and 16. All of this has a minimum length prescribed. 4, 4, 7, and 10. In version 3.74, you'll notice the account type is two account types, 05. And the minimum length is specified 04. and 04 for both these account types. So that's the change in this particular field. Then we'll talk about field tag 4, field account type, new account types added, appendix D. So the table has been updated. You'll see these new account types been added. Value is 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. You have working capital loan, commercial equipment loan, agriculture loan, overdraft against FD, and so on and so forth. You have this updated table now in the revised UCRF. Moving on to certain changes that have happened in account segment. So one is date open and disbursed. This is the date of the first disbursement by the member, and it has to be on or earlier than the date in the date reported and reject record certified field in the header segment. The above validation with the date of birth has been relaxed. Next is date of last payment. This is the most recent date a payment was made on the account, and this date has to be on or earlier than the date reported in certified field in header segment and account segment. And it has to be on or earlier than the date closed field and on or later than the date open or disbursed field in the account segment. Then we have date closed. This is the date the member or borrower closed the account or the credit limit. And the current balance field should be 0 or negative. Record will be rejected if the current balance is positive. And this date has to be on or earlier than the date reported in certified field in header segment and account segment. And it has to be on or later than the date reported and certified. Now, this is the date as of which the data is reported and certified to CIC. And this date has to be on or earlier than the date reported and certified field in header segment. It has to match on or later than date opened and disbursed field and the last payment field in the account segment. These are very logical explanations as to why the date should be on or earlier or on or later. Now we'll move on to other changes in the account segment. So credit limit and cash limit reported only for account types, credit card, fleet card, secured credit card, and corporate credit card. So 10, 16, 31, and 35. Field is rejected if account type is not from this mentioned list and amount must be positive or 0. Current balance means existing reported entire amount of credit and loan plus current and overdue portion. Now it is inclusive of interest for credit cards, which is account type 10, 16, 31, 35, and exclusive of interest for other account types. So new credit cards such as 16, 31, 35 are now under the scope of current balance. Under amount overdue, we have new credit cards which have come under the scope of amount overdue, such as 16, 31, and 35. If account type is not credit card, which is 10, 16, 31, and 35, the number of days past due reported greater than 0, then the amount overdue must be greater than 0. Some other important information such as number of days past due, you need to provide either DPD or asset classification. The record gets rejected if neither of them are provided. So please ensure one of them is provided. At least one reliable indicator is required out of the two to assess the repayment behavior, credit risk, and regulatory classification. The next update is about return of amount, principal, and total to be reported when credit facility status field is reported as 02, which is written off, 03, which is settled, or 04, post write-off settled. Whenever these credit facility status fields are reported, then return of amount, principal, and total must be reported. Previously, it was also reported for credit facility status as 13, which is post write-off and closed, for auction and settled, and for repossessed and settled. So that used to happen earlier. Now it will be reported for written off, settled, and post write-off settled. Field will be rejected if provided and CF is not 02. So credit facility is not 02, 03, or 04. So if you're giving return of amount, but credit facility is not one of these, then will be rejected. If value is 0 and return of amount principal is also 0, then will be rejected. Next is EMI amount. It has to be reported except when account type is credit card, fleet card, secured credit card, and corporate credit card, and overdraft. Previously, it was also reported except account type 10 or 12. In version 3.74, exemptions are expanded to include additional credit types as well. The last one is the trailer segment. Trailer records signifies the conclusion of the file. Hence, any data record such as header, consumer, account, address, or other segment is reported of the trailer record, even unintentionally due to formatting errors, then the full file is rejected. So you cannot have any information after the trailer segment because that indicates the end of that particular file. That completes the validation rules that have been done in Consumer Bureau. Uh, I have shared quite a few examples for all the changes so that it becomes easier for all the members to understand along with the examples. So we looked at the weekly submission timelines. We looked at the uniform data validation acceptance rules. Now we talk about the multi-factor authentication, which is already gone live on ODUU and SFTP. What multi-factor simply means, there is an additional step that members will notice while signing into SFTP or ODUU. It is a very simple step of entering an OTP. After you enter your username and password, a window will appear on the screen which will ask for an OTP, and this OTP is sent on the email ID linked with the user ID when the user ID was created. So it is important for all the members to ensure that the email ID linked with the user ID is valid, is functional, it is accessible by you so that you can check the OTP when it is sent to you. In case if you want to change the email ID because it's not working, it's old, you don't know what the email ID is, you might want to replace it, you can do that. Now, to change the email ID, you have to ask your nodal officer to email FTP ID support at support.transunion.com. And in that email, mention the user ID, mention the email ID that you would like to update, and they will update that. In case you don't know what the email ID is, which is linked with the user ID, and you want to know that, for that as well, the nodal officer has to email FTP ID support at support.transunion.com and request them to share the email. And the most important point here is the email has to be sent by the nodal officer only. The turnaround time for your request to be actioned is 5 business days. With that, we've completed the agenda for this webinar. I will now keep the forum open for any questions that any members might have. And like I mentioned earlier, if there are any fresh questions that you have come across that you would like to ask, you can post those questions in the chat box. I'm going through the chat to see any existing questions that are already there. Deepak, the changes are effective from July 1st, 2026. All these changes will be effective. And that's the date which is mentioned in the RBI circular as well. This dated December 4th, 2025. If there's no change in the data, Kavita, then in that case, you can simply send an email and intimate us that there's no change in the data. And you have to mention the reporting cycle for which you're confirming that there is no change, such as week 1, week 2, week 3. You need to mention that. Shivraj, yes.